Hello, everyone. I'm Randy Arrington, and welcome to the 60th episode of Valley Livin. We're here today in the Andrew Jackson School Museum, attached to the Rec Center on the west end of Lorain, to talk with Taylor Alger. We visited with Taylor about a year ago to talk about the many programs that she's involved in around the community that helps both youth and adults. And we thought we'd check in about a year later to see how things are going and how things have changed, if anything has taken on a new direction. We'll be talking about all these programs and more with Taylor Alger here in just a moment. But first, a word from our sponsor. At Luray Caverns, from well-lighted paved walkways, explore cathedral-sized rooms with ceilings 10 stories high, and walk among huge chambers filled with towering stone columns. Come visit Geology's Hall of Fame, only at Luray Caverns. Visit them online at luraycaverns.com to plan your trip today. Welcome back, everyone. As we said, we're here today in the Andrew Jackson School Museum at the Rec in West Luray to talk with Taylor Alger. Taylor, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
Now, we talked, I think the show, one of our first 10 or so, I can't remember the exact number, I should have looked it up before, but it was one of our early episodes. We met on, the show aired on February 14th of last year, 2024. You had just started a new position in August of 2023. And I know some things have changed, so I told you we wanted to start out this interview today. For the average viewer out there, they probably heard that, well, Taylor Alger, she's involved in a little bit of everything. And then there was this new position created that came out of the community forums through Page County Public Schools. And Bo Cook had an idea that you already had, and things kind of got together. And they formed a position that was funded by several different groups where you were attempting to find overlaps maybe in different organizations that were trying to help people. You were looking for efficiencies, ways that resources could be shared. So get us up to speed, because I know things have changed a little bit.
Yes, they have. So back in February, we were beginning that work, but what we didn't say on that episode that I think is important for the community to understand, when you have these different community organizations and community groups and nonprofits, they're funded a lot of times through grants, right? Or generous, community members and donations and foundations. And so what we were doing is, yes, we were trying to create this position to coordinate, but we were going after, those same funding streams that are also funding all these different organizations. Right. So to begin, we kind of piggybacked off of another grant, and we were only able to fund that position for 5 hours a week up until May. Okay. So, there was some momentum and there was some traction, but in 5 hours a week to coordinate, all different organizations and things like that, it was difficult. Right. However, it worked out really beautifully, because as that was happening and as we were having those conversations, the previous September, the Chamber of Commerce had began a nonprofit council, which was getting all the nonprofits together to have those conversations of how do we work together, where are the gaps, what can we do to move this community forward. Right. And then JMU had gotten a grant. It was JMU Reach. It was a rural initiative to really identify the resources in a community and the networks that already existed, and how can we build and strengthen those networks. Okay. So, we are moving forward with this position. Those two efforts were happening. We had an organization, Community Works, come together, which their main focus was how do we support local organizations. Right. So as all that was happening, when it came to, May, June, July, we said, okay, how do we take all of these things that we're trying to do and just bring them together? Because no one likes to have meeting after meeting to have the same conversations. Right. So we formed, through the nonprofit council, through my position, through the JMU grant, we put that all together into Community Action Team, which is CAT for short. Okay. And what we have multiple organizations, people supporting the community at the table, and we've identified the community issues, right? We know what our struggles are. So as we've had those conversations, now we're saying, how can we all come together to support one another, build our organizations to be able to do what we can do, and then identify a project that we can all move forward on together.
So the community action team, would you say more so than a specific group that's tackling specific projects, it's more of a liaison, a connecting tool?
Yes, exactly. It's
Okay.
it's a collaborative tool to say, all right, let's all get at the table, have our voices heard, know what everyone's doing.
Okay.
Right? So we don't have to have someone running from organization to organization to coordinate. And then how can we then say, what is a project that touches all of our organizations that we
Okay.
can come together and
And how long has that, the community action team, how long has that been going on?
so that came together, I would say the end of the summer.
End of the summer. And
July, August.
okay, so rolling up on we're in spring now, it'd
Right.
be a year and a little bit. But anyway, what is the structure of that? Is there a board or is there just one point person? Or?
Great question. So it's underneath the chamber right now. And then we have co-chairs. So myself and then Liz Lewis,
Okay.
we were co-chairs in that. And then we kind of piggyback off of each other. You know, we set the agendas, the conversations, and then we really just, it's community input. So anyone at the table, I mean, we're all contributing, but we just kind of do like the administrative organizational stuff.
So if you're the two co-coordinators, there is a board, or who shows up at these meetings?
Oh my goodness.
Just
So
stakeholders
yeah, so
in the
there's Gina
community?
Hilliard, you know, she's
Sure,
the director of the chamber,
sure.
so she's there. And then between the three of us, we're kind of doing the administrative
Okay,
stuff.
okay.
And then we have nonprofit organizations. We've had local government show up to the table.
Okay.
We've even had meetings where, I mean, and it's open to anyone. So we would invite community members. We invite especially our local legislators and
Oh, wow, okay.
stakeholders to come to the table and again say, okay, how can we come together as a team?
If you have a specific issue for a specific group or something, do you put out special invitations to
Yes.
these different? Okay.
Yes,
So it's going to be a different group maybe when y'all get together each time.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is. I mean, everyone's busy, you know, and
Okay,
it's hard
yeah,
to see, you know,
sure,
who can show
sure.
up. But I think it's been really good the direction we're going because again, we focused. Right now, we're looking at food access and
Okay.
how can food access support our local economy, our local, you know, jails, right? You know, how can it support our schools? How can it support workforce? And then, you know, how can that support every organization?
And knowing you, I am quite sure that we're not just talking about quantity of food, we're talking about quality of food, right?
Yes.
And
absolutely.
maybe not just, I'm sure you're working with Page One in some
They're
capacity.
there. Yep.
And probably maybe with some of the, I don't know, farm to table stuff in the schools?
Yes, yeah,
That
nutrition
too?
services. The director, Jenny Jeffries, comes to our meetings just about every
Okay.
meeting.
Excellent.
And so yeah, and I think with food access, it's not just how do we get the food, how do we get it to the people, but then how do we educate people on how to use produce and all of those things.
Sure,
you know?
sure.
So it's, you know, there's many different directions and layers to food access, but we have many different directions and layers in the room that we can kind of approach this.
So if food access is one of your main drives right now, are there others, or are you going to do you have a timetable like, all right, we're going to focus on this for a year and then something else, or how do you choose your big targets?
I think for me right now, I want to see this project come to fruition and have some legs. And you know, we're looking at applying to grants and things right now because we've had so many conversations around the
Right.
needs in our community. And if we can see some tangibilities and sustainability with a project that's community led, then okay, let's tackle. You know, and we do
Something
have
else, okay.
yes.
But for now, you're staying focused on one issue.
Yes and no. We have different irons in the fire. So we're
Okay,
talking
sure.
with the town of Luray around housing and
Okay.
our struggles with homelessness and affordable housing.
Right.
We really kind of were a part of the efforts to start with the transportation study
Okay.
that's been kind of passed.
Right.
So there's different things that are happening, but again, it's okay. really put a lot of effort into this one direction and hopefully see those other projects unfold on the outskirts, if that makes sense.
Two other things I want to hit on before we take our first break here. One of the things that you are doing now is called Positive Youth Development. Yes. Obviously a youth focus. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so my heart has always been with the youth. And I knew with this community coordinator position, which was the position we talked about, I knew it was needed in the community. Mm-hmm. I knew everyone came together and said, okay, let's do this. And I would do it because I care about our community, mm-hmm. and I knew that I could do it.
Right.
However, I think if you want to stop a generational cycle, and we have so many of those here in Page County, right. you have to start with the youth, right. and you have to start with the family. And so my background, a lot of my experience is working with the youth. So mm-hmm. as that position was with the community coordination right. was kind of right. weighing, I was, working with the school board, already in the schools. I was here at the rec working with our kids. And so I said, I want to identify the top, handful of kids that have the highest behavioral needs, that have the highest amount of trauma and adverse childhood experiences. Right. And I want to really hone in on helping them to be able to, yes, heal from the past and be more, functional and, fluid in the present, but then be able to really create a future where they can reach their highest potential.
So this program, right, at least right now where it's at, you're focusing on, I think you told me 9 children, is that correct? I have 9
children right now.
Okay.
Yes.
And again, how long does that last? Like, you focus on those 9, when do you move on to others, or what? I mean, how does that work?
Yes, so I have a strike system with the kids to have accountability, and it's not, if you do this, you get in trouble and you're out, because I think that punitive measures really hurt our children rather than help them. Right. However, I want to see that they're giving what I'm giving, that they're putting in the effort, that they're trying, that they care about their future. So if I, if they get 3 strikes, then we'll take a break from the program. But I'm also constantly assessing and measuring. So I've made assessment tools to really measure each week their progress and their regression. So if I see a kid that is steadily progressing, and I know that they're doing that, and I don't have to meet with them every week. Maybe it's every other week or every couple of weeks, and I say, okay, you know what? I'm still a support. I'm still here, but you've got this. Right?
So if you're working with these 9, let's say one graduates from the program, or maybe goes the other direction, is not in the program. Do you have a certain number of kids you're trying to maintain, or is it just sort of fluid? And
well, I started with 10, and I've had probably 3 or 4 kids drop out of the program, and I've picked up 2 or 3 kids. As it's been
so
going.
If you lose a few, you add a few, and you're trying to keep a general number of.
Yes, and meanwhile, I'm meeting with these kids every single week. I'm coordinating with their teachers, with their principals. Mm-hmm. If they have other service providers, so other counselors or anything in their life, I'm working with them as well. Okay. And I'm also working with their parents each week. So 9 kids, 8 kids, 10 kids doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot.
I know. Well, we're going to hit the last one. We're going to talk when we come back after a break in a moment about the reentry program that Taylor's also working with. And we're going to talk a little bit in general about how you get your arms around these very, very large problems in our community. We'll talk about all that and more in just a moment. But first, let's hear another word from our sponsor, Luray Caverns. At Luray Caverns, the Smithsonian Institution said, quote, "It is safe to say there is probably no other cave in the world more completely and profusely decorated than that of Luray. Come see Mother Nature showing off, only at Luray Caverns. Visit them online at luraycaverns.com to plan your trip today." And we're back again, everyone, talking with Taylor Alger here at the Andrew Jackson School Museum at the Rec in West Luray. We talked earlier about the Community Action Team, which she's been working with and what they're doing, the Positive Youth Development. that she's been working with as well, another program. And another one is the reentry program. We talked a lot about youth early on. This is working with adults in the court system. This is something you had been doing before and are still doing. Tell me a little bit about how that works and what you're doing.
Yes, so the reentry program is a grant. It's through the Sheriff's Department, but it's kind of its own program. And what we're doing is focusing on substance use. So Page County has a very high rate of recidivism. So that's people going in, getting out,
Specifically drug related too, right?
Yes, very high drug related and generational.
Okay.
So it's not just in individuals, it's grandparents and parents, and so it's just that revolving door. So our Sheriff's Department saw that and applied for this grant. So we focus on folks that, and they have to request the program. So we offer peer support specialists through Strength and Peers. We offer case management. So if they need housing, a job, transportation, documents, we help them with that. And then we also offer the kind of counseling and trauma work side, which is what I'm doing. So the foundation of everything I do is around trauma. And you know, addiction is just a symptom of that, right?
Right.
So what I do is focus on helping people see, okay, we turn to substances, but then what has happened in your life to lead to that, and then what can we do to create patterns so that we stay away from substances, we have new coping mechanisms, and then ideally are no longer incarcerated and no longer.
Are you working with the drug court in that?
No, so they're two separate programs. We do partner, so we have folks that we've been working with in the jail, and when they're being released, they're going into the recovery court.
Okay.
We'll kind of partner with them so we can kind of do that warm handoff.
Okay.
And I still have folks that I worked with in the jail who are in recovery court that I have that relationship and kind of just cheerlead them on from afar. But since they're two different programs, they both have their own resources. So
So we, you know, let's put the youth part of it aside, although the youth part of it is part of this bigger picture. But just for the moment, let's talk about the adult drug problem in the county, just for a moment. And, you know, I'm sure there's some in law enforcement that could address this, maybe some in the court system that could address this, but you also kind of have your fingers in everything. So I think this is a good question for you. I think, at least from a resident of the county, it appears to be more resources, more groups out there. And if we talk about maybe the last 5 or 10 years or so, there's particularly in the last 5 years, with Arise coming on board, with the drug court being formed and helping people directly, with the new recovery home in Stanley that is there helping, not a large number, but a few people, and with the new treatment center that's coming on board on the east side of town, over where Brookside used to be. So at least from the outside looking in, there looks like there is a lot more effort, a bigger push to provide resources and programs for these people. Is it working? Are we making a dent?
Yes, I believe that we truly are.
Okay.
And, you know, my whole life, and coming back to Page County, I always heard about the drug problem, the drug problem, the drug problem. And, you know, I was just in the jail today telling someone there is an incredible movement, and I'm calling it a movement that is happening specifically around recovery in Page County.
Okay.
I think that not only are all these groups coming up and working to provide, and we're treating the entire spectrum, right? So from prevention to active addiction to treatment to recovery to sustained recovery. I think that all these groups are coming up and meeting these needs, but we're also collaborating and coordinating. I had a situation at the jail just today where I had to, within 10 minutes, I called Arise, I called Gloria Hamilton, I was, reached out to our case manager with a JMAP program. We were able to get someone housing, veteran services, all the resources they need that quick because of the collaboration that we have.
Now, I know you're from Page County. You moved away for a little while and you came back. But is this a fair statement if I said 15 or 20 years ago, some of those resources might have been there, but not nearly as much or reactive? In other words, if I was an addict in that situation, I've maybe got a much better chance of recovery now. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, 100%. No,
Okay.
it really, really is. I mean, the resources are there. The understanding of addiction and recovery is growing in our community.
Yeah.
And again, the collaboration. That has been key. And I've seen a lot of people, even recently, that are getting out of the jail and they're going to meetings every single night a week. And I don't just mean AA, NA. You know, we have those programs.
Yeah,
so we
right.
have Celebrate Recovery at Main Street Baptist Church.
Yes.
We have Free Indeed at Newport Church of the Brethren. We have, people are going to church together. There's just so many things that are happening.
There really are. The churches in particular, I would say in the last 10, 15 years, seem to be much more involved in this effort.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
And an interesting thing we talked about, we chatted a little bit prior to recording today. Some of the funding that you get through PACA, that you're paid with, is a part of a 10-year federal grant. Is that correct?
Yes.
And they're coming towards the end of that grant. And also some of the money that supports the work you do with our courts in the reentry program are also tied to federal grants.
Yes.
Does that make you nervous with what's going on right now?
It does. I mean, it really does. And, it's been, there's a lot of information, sometimes misinformation, going around. So it's hard to know what is what and what's true, what's not. I've heard, I'll call them rumors for now.
Okay.
That even certain words like trauma and certain words like crime victims have been identified as efforts that will no longer be funded.
Along the same levels of DEI.
Things like, yes, these,
Okay.
and that's, we're going through, we're highlighting, we're trying to see where the spending is going. But it's a little bit of that feeling of, okay, this is not just my work, this is my whole life.
Yeah.
And this is what I put my everything into. And,
Right.
And I work for, nonprofit. I don't do this for the money by any means.
Right.
But I have to, sustain myself and sustain my efforts.
Right. But the PACA grant is good at least for a couple more years, two.
I think about another year.
About
or
another
so.
year, and then we
Yes.
don't know.
Yes,
Okay.
and then we're
All
not
right.
sure.
Well, we'll move on, but
Yes. Yes.
but it does have local impacts. Decisions in DC do have local impacts.
Absolutely.
That's all I'm saying. I'm
Yeah.
not. One of the things that I think about, and I think other people have brought this same question up in general conversations about the addiction problem and all, is it's great to have programs that deal with the aftermath, the recovery, the addiction, and other things like that. But what are we doing to try to get at the other end of the problem and try to decrease the demand for these services?
Yeah. I look at it like you're going to the doctor, right? If you have a cold, yes, you want your symptoms to be treated. You don't want to sneeze anymore. You don't want to have congestion. You don't want to have the cough. But ultimately, there's a virus inside of you causing that cold that needs to be addressed. Right. And I think, we do need to treat the symptoms, addiction, incarceration, all of these things, they are a symptom. But when you go deeper, we have generational trauma in our community. We have generational poverty in our community. And those things then birth and stem, greater.
And this is where your work with youth, you're trying to catch it in the early, or prevent it from happening at all.
Exactly, yeah. It's, you work with the entire cycle, but you want to stop the cycle before the cycle starts.
Right.
And so that's why when I'm working with kids, yes, I'm working with the schools. I'm not just addressing their behaviors. I'm looking at why are these behaviors happening? And especially with our youth today, with social media and technology and just the pressures that are on our kids, where they don't know where they belong. They're online and they're comparing themselves with people all over the world. So I'm trying to give them opportunities to get involved, to be a part of something, to do community projects where they can, one, find their own passion and what they care about, to feel like they have a purpose and to feel that they belong to something. And that also they have the support from their community as well. Right. To know that if they need resources and they need support, there's a community there to support that.
Right. I know that what you do is physically and mentally taxing. You probably deal with some things, situations that would shock a lot of maybe
yeah.
average people in the
Yeah.
in the community. So we could sit here and list the obstacles, the problems, the things that are in your way. But are you seeing some successes? Are you seeing where we're getting through, where these efforts are making a difference?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I am, and I have kids that will text me, and I'll have volunteer opportunities. I'll set them up for. They're like, "Yeah, I'm excited to volunteer," or "I'd love to volunteer," or I have kids that are taking their own initiative to go to their teachers and say, "Hey, I need help. I'm missing work," and teaching them to advocate for themselves.
Right.
I'm seeing people, as I said, that are getting out of the jail and are going to those meetings, finding a support system, finding community. And as I said, we have all these organizations that are not only coming up and growing and extending their efforts, but then they're weaving together and collaborating. And I could sit here, as I could sit here and tell you stories that would break your heart and that would shock you, I could also sit here and tell you all night success stories and transformations that I'm seeing.
Good. Well, you
Yes.
give me hope.
Yeah, good. Let's go.
When you look at our surrounding neighbors in the Shenandoah Valley, northern Shenandoah Valley, Page County does have their share of drug problems, their share of poverty problems. A lot of kids on free lunches and Title I in the schools, and they're all big problems. But if we got folks out there like you clawing and digging and trying, it gives me a little bit of hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Taylor, for
Yes.
being with us today. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it so much. Keep up the good work. Just keep chugging along.
Yes, we will.
Well, folks, we hope you've enjoyed this issue's 60th episode of Page Valley Livin. Hope you learned a little bit about what's going on in our community. And hey, maybe you heard something that maybe opens up an opportunity where you could step in and volunteer and find your niche and your way to contribute to the solution for this problem in our community. We want to thank everybody for watching today. We want to thank our sponsor, Luray Caverns, and we want to thank Eleanor Arrington for all of her work behind the camera and in the editing room this week. Make sure you hit that like button, share this video with a friend, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Page Valley News. And as always, make sure you go by the Page County Animal Shelter and help one of our furry friends find a forever home. Until next week, for Taylor Alger, I'm Randy Arrington saying, enjoy that Page Valley living.